Welcome back, panelists here. David Brody, host of Faith Nation on the Christian Broadcasting Network. Amy Walter, national editor of the Cook Political Report. NBC News chief foreign affairs correspondent Andrea Mitchell, and Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher. All right, I got to start with the president, Russia, and just sort of the larger atmosphere we're in right now. Amy, it feels as if all of Washington, he's consumed by it for obvious reasons, but is Washington almost paralyzed now?
It does, it does feel that way. Although, let's be really clear, I think, the moment that we saw the Speaker of the House say that he was retiring, it was, to me, an admission that nothing's going to get done.
It was over.
Between
right.
now, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done legislating. We're done doing anything except for focusing on the midterm elections. That has been really, and I think that McConnell's basically saying the same thing. So some of it is about Russia, but a lot of it is the environment is so bad. We're not going to get anything done in here. Let's go out and at least try to make our case on the campaign trail.
Except the president keeps bringing attention back to Russia. I mean, as a point I made with Mark Short.
Exactly.
Well, and I would just say, you know, James Comey has really been Donald Trump's best friend this week. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, look, he says he doesn't leak, and then he leaks. And he calls the president morally unfit, and, oh, by the way, he's under investigation himself. He wants justice, and he's going out on a book tour during an active investigation. I mean, this has really become, to a degree, Comey's comedy of errors. And it goes to all of those tweets that everybody laughs about, witch hunt, that Donald Trump talks about. Here it is. In the red world out there of Trump's base, it is deep state gone off the rails. And we haven't even gotten to Andrew McCabe yet, who had a bit of lack of candor.
You know, I think that Susan Collins is the best tell on this, in that when she said that he should not have written the book in the middle of the investigation and should not have her words cashed in.
Yeah, it was rough language.
Tour,
Susan
as
Collins
a former
says
FBI official, she is
that tough.
You know, she is so down the middle on this, and that is a real indicator to me. I disagree on the quote leaks, because I think he had every right to write memos to self, and those memos were not classified at the time. They're not leaks. He could share them. They were his to even declassify if he wanted to, given the fact that he had not yet been fired. So that I disagree with, but that is the narrative that certainly is out there. And I think that by getting personal, by not writing a legalistic book, by speaking about hands and hair and other affects, it's too novelistic.
Here is, I think, the problem with the Comey thing for the president is larger. You know, in the Quinnipiac poll, you have 63% disagreeing or disapproving of the president's handling of the Russia problem, and the Comey thing sort of doubles down on that, because what I found striking about the Comey memos was how focused the president was on personal. Right. At a time when we were being attacked, both Republicans and Democrats were saying Russia is aggressive and they're attacking us. The president wasn't focused on that at all. He was focused on his own self-interest, and I think for middle America, that's a problem.
Right.
I do want to bring up Michael Cohen, because the president, he was really animated about that Michael Cohen story. He got really upset with Sam Nunberg's quotes, but he didn't get upset with Roger Stone, who was also quoted in the New York Times as saying this about Michael Cohen: Donald goes out of his way to treat him like garbage. The president pushed back really hard in a series of tweets, Amy, going out of their way to destroy Michael Cohen and his relationship with me in the hopes that he will flip a businessman for his own account. Hint, hint, I don't know all of his business dealings.
That's right.
And sorry, I don't see Michael doing that, referring to flipping.
Flipping.
Boy, is he nervous about Cohen.
Yeah, well, and to make the case, this may be about his own business. It's not about my business. They're going to, if he sings, it's about things that he's done wrong that aren't affiliated with me. And to get out of those problems, he's going to make stuff up. You've heard a number of other folks say that too. Well, you know, Cohen may feel really pressured to say stuff so he can get out of this. But it's pretty clear that we've moved pretty far away now from Russia. And that's the question that I really want to understand is, what are voters going to think when what was ostensibly started as Russian interference turns into learning more about the president's personal business behavior? What are voters going to say? Well, we kind of think that's out of bounds, or are they going to say?
And that's precisely why Mueller, as Collins did also say, as Senator Collins said, that's why it was referred to Manhattan, to the state prosecutor. And that's, you know, to the New York case. That's why she has said that it has not gone beyond. We don't know exactly where it's gone, but that it has not gone beyond the original brief. I'm so struck
again. Will know that though.
Amy brings up a good point, and I think, and I would love for you guys quickly to touch on this, which is Mueller needs to produce what the connection is, probably, and if he doesn't, it may lead people to believe, wait a minute, this looks like they're just trying to get him.
Yeah.
Well, right now, I think we say that, but right now, when you look at public opinion on this, they think there's some there, right? We may never get to where it holds up to collusion in court, but I think for a lot of people, common sense, something's going on there and it's not right.
Well, and then I would say they're never really. It doesn't seem like they're getting there. That's the problem. And I just real quick on Michael Cohen. Look, I've known him for 7 years. Let me, and pretty well actually. And let me be clear. I don't see him flipping at all. And this whole Roger Stone comment. Look, Donald Trump has up and down relationships with everybody.
That is a fact. I can attest to it myself.
You're garbage one day and you're in the penthouse the next day. So
go ahead.
I just feel that the bigger issue here is that the president, if Washington isn't completely gridlocked, which I think it is, the president is completely consumed by this. During times when we've had the chemical attacks in Syria and this, in fact, the nuclear opportunities
with North Korea, he gets back
this
to
is what
Russia.
he keeps getting back to this. He keeps focusing on it, and this is precisely what Comey memorialized in his memo, that he was not in those very moments asking about the Russian attack on our electoral system. He was all asking about him, about Michael Flynn, and about the hookers in Moscow.
Well, a year from now, what do you think we'll be talking about? Cohen or North Korea? What was more substantive and what had a bigger
2 years
impact?
from now, because it's going to take
bigger
that long.
impact
I
on
think
the
in the
presidency?
midterm elections, people are going to be talking about they got a little bit more money in their paychecks. I mean, really, if you look at the,
They're not feeling that yet.
I will just say this: you look at the polling. I mean, the polling shows, it's the economy, it's immigration, it's other issues. It's not
This is a conversation we're going to touch on a little bit later. Sort of
Yeah.
the Democrats' focus. Is it going to be on Russia or is it going to be on the economy? Very quickly, North Korea. There seems to be a split even in the Trump administration.
Sure.
The president is gung ho. His advisors are like grabbing the reins, aren't they?
Most experts are saying Kim Jong-un has played this so smartly. He's got a meeting coming up on Friday with the South Koreans. He's already pitching himself as the great negotiator, the great conciliator. The base in the north was not liked by China. It was already broken down. They're going to get rid of that. They're popping up elsewhere, underground, wherever. We have very bad intelligence on it. We don't know how many weapons they already have. He's not giving up anything that's real. He hasn't tested in months and months. This so-called freeze on testing is what was already taking place.
All right, we shall see. President, as somebody said, never has a bad personal meeting when he gets into the same room. What does that mean for Kim Jong-un? Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.